All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Stylish Seamless Formatting. My name is Kevin Kane, and I want to start by introducing you to my co-presenter, Jason Weil. So Jason has been a senior software engineer here at Tableau for over 3 years, and he's spent a lot of that time delivering formatting features to our online platforms. And Jason, like a lot of us, loves to travel. But he also has a passion for language. He previously studied Japanese and Spanish, and he's currently studying French and German for an upcoming trip.
And bienvenue and willkommen, everyone. My upcoming trip's going to take me to Strasbourg, so if anyone knows Alsatian, let me know. I'll buy you a drink. Maybe Tableau will, and you can teach me some useful phrases. As this photo indicates, I love being a Tableau doctor when I come to conference. This is my 3rd conference, and I've been a doctor at every single conference I've visited, including this one. And I like coming to conference and being a doctor because I like sitting down with our customers one-on-one and understanding how they use Tableau, how they benefit from it, and how they can improve their use of it. And something that I've learned after sitting down with customers is sometimes people feel frustrated that they're putting a lot of time into formatting, but they don't feel like they're getting as much out of it as they should. And so that motivated me to work with Kevin to bring this talk to you. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to Kevin here. Kevin is a software engineer here at Tableau. I worked with Kevin for about a year as teammates on the formatting team. We worked on Workbook Formatting, bringing that onto the web, and making sure that it was of high quality, and it is. That's good. But Kevin, like me, likes to travel, but when Kevin travels, he travels for serious business. This is a competitive West Coast swing event, and Kevin travels all over the world and goes to these. And I really love that Tableau is a supportive enough place that we get the benefit of Kevin's service as a software engineer, but Kevin also gets to travel all around doing his favorite activity.
Thanks. Yeah, I love West Coast Swing. Each year, thousands of people travel all over to go to different competitions. And in these competitions, you start in the novice division and you work your way up to eventually the champions division. And I've been doing it for about 8 years, and it's a lot of fun. So I'm excited to share with you a West Coast Swing data set later, and that's what we're going to be working on with formatting.
All right, great. Let's talk about some of the topics we're going to cover at this intermediate level formatting session. We're going to talk about thinking big, starting with changes that are going to have a big impact on your visual formatting with a small amount of effort, and then getting more specific as you go. We hope you leave here with a mental model about when you make a change to formatting, what is it going to affect and what is going to be the impact of that. We'll also talk a little bit about some of the work that Tableau has done to make your vises beautiful by default. And we'll finish with flair. We'll show you how to finish your visualizations with some constructive accents to really call out portions of your data. Unfortunately, we've only got the hour here, so we're not going to be able to cover absolutely everything about formatting. There are hundreds of things you can do with formatting in Tableau, and so if we fail to cover something that is important to you, please come talk to us or book a session with the Tableau doctor. We'd be happy to help with you. In addition, there are a few topics that we are not going to go into in tremendous detail, but there are entire sessions dedicated to them. Dashboards and storytelling are great features in Tableau. I admit I'm biased, I worked on them. But they are great ways of combining multiple visualizations into one shareable element. So if you don't use those yet, you definitely should. Data prep is also very important, as you learned this morning in the vision keynote. And that is the process of connecting to your data and getting it ready for use in visualizations. We're not going to really go into that here. And then also there's visual best practices.
Yeah, so visual best practices are that what to do. It's sort of the designer's eye of, what colors and how should these things come together. And Jason and I aren't designers, but we are experts in how to do, in how to make these formatting changes once you have an idea of what you want to change. So that's what we're going to be showing you today.
Right, so there's the what to do and there's the how to do it, but let's also talk a little bit about the why to do it. Why is formatting important? Tableau helps people see and understand data. This is Tableau's mission statement. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it before. This is very important to us here at Tableau as developers. We talk about it often, and formatting helps people see their data. Formatting can help a data set be presented in a way that matches your corporate identity, for example, or to call out specific items you want to accent. But to understand your data really starts with the data itself, importing it, preparing it, and choosing a meaningful viz. That's the foundation of a meaningful use of Tableau. Formatting can build on it, but it can't replace a less meaningful choice of viz. And we'll show you a couple examples a little bit later on. All right, so let's start with this exact replica of the hotel I'm staying at here at Tableau. Anyone else staying at the Luxor? Woo! Anyone staying in the pyramid? I got the tower, so nobody got a pyramid room? It's all right, I've heard they're not any good anyway. But in any case, this inverted pyramid here shows the different tiers of formatting available in Tableau. We're going to start with the data and the theme, and this being the widest slice, it has the most amount of impact for every change that you make. And then we're going to end with that little asterisk down there at the bottom. These are for the accent pieces. These have the lowest individual impact, but they are useful to do at the very end of your experience with Tableau. Also, as Kevin mentioned, I like languages. Tableau has its own language, so I wanted to go over a few terms, because we're going to be talking about them a lot at this talk. Every worksheet has a title. We present it normally up there in the corner. You can change the alignment, change the appearance of it, retitle it, or hide it. Field labels appear on top of axes, and they indicate what it is you're looking at. They're not quite headers. They have a separate format all to their own. Also, axes have a few different things you can customize. This is a numeric axis, so it has numeric labels, tick marks, and a title, each of which can be formatted. Headers can also be formatted. You can see here we've rotated them to be vertical, so we can fit a little bit more space in the worksheet. Captions are not normally shown by default, and we automatically generate them. You can also modify them to provide some additional information. This is like a textual representation of what it is you're looking at. Very useful if you want to make your data available in a text search engine, or to make it more accessible to people with vision issues. Marks are so important. We have an entire card dedicated to them in Tableau. The marks card lets you change the color, the type, the size, the labeling, and many other options for your marks. And lastly, the legend can be shown or hidden, and we have a few options that are available to you. You can change the shading and the positioning and the fonts used for it. All right, let's start at our first level of our pyramid, the data and the theme formatting. These are the highest impact items, and you can start formatting your data and your theme even before you create your first viz. So we recommend that you start on this at the very beginning if you can. Once you've prepared your data and you've moved on to sheet number 1 in Tableau, you get this left pane, the data pane, and it shows you all your pills, your fields, your dimensions, and your measures. And each one you can right-click on it, and you get a context menu with an item that says Default Properties. And default properties will vary depending on the type of pill you've right-clicked on. But for this numeric one, you can change the default color, for example. And if we change the default color, we see that by default, we've put in a dark orange to a dark blue color palette. But let's say I want to change that to a red-green diverging palette. Now, red and green aren't always ideal colors for this purpose, but if we change it, every time we drag profit onto color, we are going to get that red-green diverging palette. You don't have to change it on every single worksheet, so that'll save you time. You can also change the default sort of your textual fields. And that way, if you have a textual field with, say, 3 values of bronze, gold, and silver, we know that gold is in first place, silver is in second, and bronze is in third. But if you go with alphabetical order, bronze comes first. So there's a manual option where I can force that to be lower in position. Once I've done that, whenever I use this category as a sort option, gold comes up in first position. So who here has used Tableau since the version 9 series? 9.0, 9.1, 9.2? The 8 series? 7? A few 7 users, nice. Thank you for your loyalty. We appreciate your loyal use of Tableau over the years. You've probably noticed that as we improve Tableau, we also changed the visual theme. We changed the default theme. But we don't upgrade your old workbooks to use the new theme automatically. That's because we know a lot of people have very precise positioning for things in their worksheets and their dashboards. So if you have any old workbooks that are built with Tableau 9 or older, you can go to the Format menu, choose Workbook Theme, and change from Tableau 9, which we now call previous, to Tableau 10, which we now call default. You see 9 on the left, 10 on the right. This will establish new defaults. So if you've made customizations, we're not going to overwrite those, but we think that you'll benefit from some of the improvements we've made to the default theme. And I'll show a couple of them for emphasis here. We have a beautiful new font in Tableau 10 called the Tableau font, designed by acclaimed font designer Tobias Frere-Jones. He's a better designer than he is a namer, what can I say? Specifically designed for data visualization. Looks great at multiple font sizes and in multiple styles and colors, or in sizes and styles. You see on the left we use a couple of different fonts, and on the right by default we just use different variants of the Tableau font. In addition, we changed the way that borders and lines work. In Tableau 9, we put a border around your entire viz, but that didn't really help to make it, to express it and to make it easier to understand. So instead, in Tableau 10, we just put axis rulers. You can see you've got a vertical axis for the y-axis and a horizontal line for the x-axis. And the top and right borders have been removed. And in addition, so these bars are easier to discern from one another, we added some slight grid lines. And that's all available by default. All right, let's hand it over to Kevin here for our first demo with Tableau formatting.
All right. Thanks, Jason. So I told you that I would give you some West Coast swing data, so here it is. So this workbook has 3 visualizations. This first one is the number of people in each division by role. So for example, I'm a leader in West Coast swing, and so they have leaders and followers in each division, from novice all the way to champions. And this next viz shows the number of points that are given out in each division each year. So as you can see near the start, there weren't very many events, so not many points given out. But now, West Coast swing is growing throughout the years. So there are more points. And this last viz is a dashboard that's made up of 2 sheets. And it's the top 10 leaders by points and the top 10 followers by points. And these are the vizzes we're going to be working with. And I hope one day to be on this list, but we'll keep hoping. So let's start off with the theme. So I noticed that this was made in Tableau 9. So we're going to go up to Format and go to Workbook Theme and select Default. OK, so there are a number of changes right off the bat. And we're going to be using those all the way throughout. So the next thing I want to do is I want to update the sort. So this is sorted alphabetically from advanced to novice, but I know that it goes from novice to champions. So I'm going to, like Jason said, change the default property on current division. So if I right-click on current division and go to default property, I can change the sort to be a manual sort and move novice to the top, and intermediate next to it, and then advanced all-stars champions. And now that it's in the proper sorted order, it's a little easier to see trends. It was a little surprising to see that the all-star division is smaller than the champions division, but the reason is because the all-star division hasn't been around as long. The next thing I want to do is add a little bit of color. So I'm going to take role and put that on color. And by default, it gives us this orange and blue. But I want my, let's give it a little more space. I want my colors to match the World Swing Dance Council website. So there they use a blue for leaders and a pink for followers. So I'm going to make that change. And I want to do that on the default property so that every time I use role, it will default to that color. So I'm going to change the follower to pink and the leader to blue. And we're off. Cool. So this is a workbook about dance. And so I want it to have a certain look and feel. And a lot of workbooks have particular corporate standards or particular looks and feels we're going for. And one way to access that is by changing the font. So font is something that is pretty polarizing. Does everyone have a favorite font? I just want you to think about it, and on the count of 3, everyone say their favorite font, all right? 1, 2, 3. Helvetica. That was good. I didn't hear any of them, but we all know in our hearts what our favorite font is, and that's okay. So I've picked out a couple fonts that I think will tie this workbook together. And I'm going to show you something Jason hasn't showed yet, which is the workbook formatting. So if I go to Format Workbook, I can make changes to my font that will change both of the sheets and the dashboard. So I'm going to start by changing font all to Mincho. This is a pretty clean-looking font. It's not so different from the Tableau font. I mean, I'm sure font designers are like, no, Kevin, this is really different. But to me, it's not that different. But for the titles, I want something that's a little more smooth, a little more dancey. So for the worksheet titles, I'm going to change this to Coconut. And all right, it's already waving in the wind. This is perfect. So let's go to the dashboard, and we can also change the dashboard title to Coconut. OK, so our look and feel is getting into place. Let's pass it back to Jason and learn a bit more.
All right, thanks very much, Kevin. So let's talk a little bit about workbook formatting. This is the next level down our inverted pyramid. So workbook formatting is a feature that we added in Tableau 10.0, and it's available in both Tableau Desktop and in web authoring in Tableau Server and Online. And when you go to Format and then Workbook on either of these two products, you get a bunch of options. You can change the fonts at many different levels, and you can change the lines at many different levels. Now, this is not exactly the same way as the theme works, because in the theme, we're just going to set a default, a baseline. If you modify the font or the line in this way, you're going to overwrite any of the customizations that have been made. And let's look at an example of how that would work. Let's take a look at this dashboard. And this dashboard has a lot of different options that people have selected for fonts. These worksheets are all in different fonts for their titles, and that's kind of distracting. Designers call that the ransom note effect, when you have too many fonts on one visualization, and we don't like that. And so we can go into Format Workbook and change the worksheet titles to Franklin Gothic Book, and then all of these worksheets have titles that have changed to Franklin Gothic Book. In addition, all the worksheets I can't see from this perspective that are on different dashboards are going to be changed, and any new worksheet I create is also going to be changed. So this is a very powerful tool that can save you a lot of time by setting the standard centrally. In addition, for the benefit of those of you who are sitting in the back, I went into the Format Workbook and I changed lines to be black instead of gray, and I made them much thicker. So you can see they're much more pronounced on the bar chart, the scatter plot, and the line chart. But you notice they're only in one direction, and that's because there is a visibility option where you can change that to automatic. We've got a few options. This one is for visibility. And automatic means I'm going to let the theme decide where I should put those grid lines. Now, if you want more grid lines, you can set that to on, and now you get all the grid lines. You get horizontal and vertical grid lines on every viz, not the data table. Data tables don't have grid lines, but we put as many grid lines as is Tableau possible. And so if we want the other extreme, if we want that clean look, we can go to off, and now we have no grid lines in our visualizations. And all of this can be undone and modified as you like. All right, let's hand it back to Kevin for some more demo.
All right, thanks, Jason. So I want to do a little bit more font changes. So we have Coconut in this title, but I think it would be cool if the division itself, the current division, was also in Coconut. So I don't want to make this change across my entire workbook, so I want to change the fonts just on this worksheet. So I'm going to go to Format, Font, and this changes the fonts just on this worksheet. So this looks like a header. Let's see if we change the header to Coconut, what happens. Ooh, so it looks like it changed all of these are headers. So everything on the top, the left, and the bottom are headers. So I'm going to undo. And to access these, I can right-click on it and select Format. And this will bring up this Format Current Division menu. From here, I can select Coconut, and it changes just the ones that I want. Great. So I want to go back to the Format Workbook menu. So this is, remember, these are the font changes we made across the entire workbook. And I want to explore more of that concept that Jason was saying of it overrides things and it goes across the entire workbook. So while I'm here, there's a button at the bottom called Reset to Defaults. And what this will do is this will get rid of all of the changes that I made at the workbook level. So if I press this, everything goes back to the Tableau font except for this one. So these ones are staying in Coconor, and that's because I set it at the worksheet, not at the workbook level. All the Reset to Defaults does is clears everything at the workbook level. If I didn't remember how I set this and I want to clear it all out, one way to do that is on Format, I can clear Worksheet Formatting. And this will clear all of the changes I made on this individual worksheet as far as formatting goes. So let's do a couple undos and get back to that good state we liked. Okay. I also want to show what happens if I overwrite. So for example, font all is something that when I make a change here, it is going to blast away every font in my entire workbook to be whatever font I select. So even if I was to select MS Pimencho again, if I hit enter, it's going to overwrite all of the Coconor. It's going to just overwrite everything. And this is really powerful, but you also just need to know what's happening so you don't have any surprises later. But again, you can undo, and you'll be back to normal. OK, so Jason was talking about a clean look, and I think that would be great for this viz. So I want to get rid of these lines. So I'm going to go to Grid Lines and select Off. OK, so it looks like it got rid of the horizontal lines, but there are still these vertical lines. What are those about, Jason?
All right. Well, thanks again, Kevin. Let's talk a little bit about worksheet formatting. You saw some examples of that in that portion of the demo. So some more vocabulary here from the language nerd. This is an example of a small multiples graph. We see that this is a bullet graph that is divided into rows, and then each of those rows span multiple columns, and the intersection of that is called a pane. And panes are separated from each other by dividers. So we have row dividers and column dividers. And all of this is collectively called a sheet. And the reason why I use these four terms is because these are present all over Tableau's format panes. And understanding how these apply is essential to getting rid of lines, borders, and improving your formatting. Here are two of Tableau's format panes. We have row and column present in both. For example, under format shading, which we use for background color, we have banding, and we have a way to, for example, change the background color of, say, every other row or every third column. This is available from format shading. Under format borders, which is not format lines, it's adjacent to format lines, but it's a totally separate pane, we have row dividers and column dividers. So if we want to change the way that the divisions between panes look, this is the way we do it, at our borders. So here's an example of a small multiples graph that has no borders between its vizzes. And so you see that this is a little bit hard to read. We've got these purple dashed grid lines that are within each pane, but the panes are not separated from each other at all.
Did we mention we're not designers?
Yeah, we're not designers. Yeah, this is not design approved. This is not visual best practices. It's a separate talk. In the next slide, we have the other extreme. We have no grid lines inside the pane, but we only have dividers. You see the red horizontal lines separate the rows, and the blue vertical lines separate the columns from each other. And these two settings are both very important, but they're set independently of one another. Each format option you choose has a precedence level. If you make no customizations to formatting whatsoever, then your data and your theme formatting, Tableau will choose it for you. We'll have a default theme, and we'll do the best thing with your data. Then you can make modifications at the workbook level. You can make further customizations at the worksheet level. And we haven't shown you much about this yet, but there are even some changes you can make to individual items that have an even more specific level of precedence. Now, most changes in Tableau apply at only one of these levels. Workbook level formatting, given that it can overwrite some changes, can operate at both the workbook and worksheet level. So keep that in mind as you make changes in Tableau. All right, Kevin, you're up. More demo.
All right, thanks, Jason. So now that I know that these aren't lines, they're borders, let's get rid of them. So if I go to the Format menu, I can go to Borders. And from here, I can go to the bottom and turn off my column dividers. All right, I can also turn off the row dividers, so there are no more lines. So I want to continue on this path and make this viz really clean and minimalist. So I'm going to try to get the focus more on the data and less on the headers. So the first thing I want to do is I want to hide this title. So the people who are using this viz, just by looking at it, they know how it operates in this workbook. So I can right-click and hide the title, and now there's a bit more space for the data. I can also get rid of this current division / role. I think this isn't helping me out, so I'm going to hide this field label by right-clicking on it. I also want to get rid of this distinct count of name. I don't think that that's very helpful. So if I right-click and I unselect Show Header, this actually gets rid of the header. It gets rid of the title, but it also gets rid of the y-axis. And I don't want that, so I'm going to hit Undo. And from here, I actually need to edit the axis. When I edit the axis, there's this title here, and from here I can delete it, and it will scooch everything over. I also think that because I have color, I don't need this leader follower tag, so I can right-click and hide it. Oops, sorry, I'm going to undo that. I need to right-click and unselect Show Header. There, I just hid half my data, which isn't what I want to do. So from here, I want to go with the next change that Jason was mentioning, which is to add some shading. So if I go to shading, I can change column banding. If I increase the band size, we can, to 2, we'll get a band every other row, so, or every other column. I'm going to make this a little darker so you can all see it. And this is a nice way of dividing these without it being as harsh as a line, but it kind of draws your eyes to each division. Great. I think this worksheet is looking pretty good, so let's move on to the next one. So in points per division, we already have a lot of the changes that we made previously. So the fonts are different, and there are no grid lines. And that is because we made those changes at the workbook level. So now I want to make some changes to color. I like the idea of these divisions of green being like an easy color and red being a hard color, and kind of it going on through that. So instead of using this orange palette, I'm going to go to the Jewel Bright palette, and on the left side I see this red to green that looks pretty good. So I'm going to select one at a time, these ones, and we have a new palette. Okay, so from here, I want to add some mark labels. So let's go to Label, and I can select Show Mark Labels. Now my viz is a lot better, so I think we can move on. No, this is probably a little too busy. So I think we could show the mark labels just at the line ends. And so now we have it just at the front and the back. I think that we also don't really need them at the start of the line, so I'm going to unselect that. Now, there's a cool feature that I didn't know about until I started researching for this talk, and it's inside of font. There is a match mark color. So keep watching the 11,000 on the green line, and you'll see that now, once I select that, it changes the text to be the same color as the mark. I think that's a pretty cool effect. So from here, we just want to clean it up a bit. So points per division, we can keep this title. Let's center it. So if I double click on a title, I get this rich text editor menu, and I can center it and hit OK. That's also available on the web, which is pretty cool. Thanks, Jason. So now that I have these mark labels on the right side, I don't think I need this y-axis at all. So I can right-click and unselect Show Header. And this year of event date, I think, is a bit is not very informative. So I'm going to right-click and edit the axis to get rid of the title. OK. I think these two vizzes are looking pretty good. Let's pass it back to Jason.
All right, thanks again. Let's talk a little bit about headers and axes and the different ways you can format them. This is a cross-section of the small multiples graph we were looking at earlier. This is just the one multiple. And you can see that we've got 2 levels of row headers, a header and a subheader. We've got 1 level of column headers. And then on the axis, we've got numeric labels, a title, and then individual ticks on there. And each of these can be formatted in their respective format panes and edit dialogues. If you right-click on a row header and you click Format, you can format that level. A key tip to know what you are formatting is look at the title of the format pane. In this case, you see that there's format month of order date appearing at the top there. That means that what you are doing is only applying to that level of header. If you right-click on a different level, you can make changes there. You can also format axes. Now, we saw that if you turn off the header for an axis, you lose both the title and the numeric axis. So that's not often what you want. Choosing format lets you change the way that much of the axis looks. So you can change the font, the alignment, the background color or shading that are used for the numeric labels, and the axis ticks can be formatted here as well. But if you want to get rid of that title or change the way that the axis functions, you need to use the Edit Axis dialog. Now, this is a dialog that has a bunch of options that are more functional. For example, you can override the range that we use. You can also change it to logarithmic scale. But down here in the lower right corner, you have an option for title. And we pre-populate that with what we think is going to be a meaningful title. Sometimes it's a redundant title. You know, things like year are sometimes self-referential. And so you can just clear out that title in this dialog box. And then once you've done that and you hit OK, not only does the title go away, but also the space that it took up is reclaimed. And that way, there's more space for your data. Once you have finished up all of your worksheet formatting, and you have it just the way you like it, you can go to the Format menu and choose Copy Formatting. Then on a second worksheet, if you go to Paste Formatting, much of the changes that you've made are then applied to this second worksheet. And this can save you a lot of time if you have a lot of very similar sheets in your workbook. And now we've arrived at the pinnacle of this inverted pyramid, the shining beacon into Las Vegas skyline, upside down. These are the accent pieces. These are the pieces of flair. And here are three of them. These are the things that you can make changes to, that they have a small surface area. These are the things that are going to have small effects, but they can call out certain things that you want your viewers to pay particular attention to. For example, there are custom formatting options you can use to make tooltips more meaningful. You can add a custom image to make a dashboard more branded with your organization. Or you can add a custom shape to make your data visualization more meaningful to the data from which it came. And with that, Kevin, let's make this data dance.
All right, thanks, Jason. So, are you guys ready for some flair?
All right.
Woo! All right, thanks. So, let's start back at this sheet. So, I want to work on the tooltips. So, this is the default tooltip, and it's pretty informative, but it doesn't read, I mean, it gives you a lot of data, but I want it to read more like a sentence. So, I'm going to go into tooltip, and let's delete what we have here, and let's insert, so I want it to read the number of the role in current division. So if I look at the preview, this is 184 follower in novice. So I can cheat and add an S here. And now we have some improved tooltips. Like this reads a little better to me. 1,953 followers in intermediate. But I think we can do a little better. There are these, so I've made 2 custom labels, and this is a calculated field, and how it works is I check to see if role is F, or follower, and if it's follower, then it'll return the string followers. Otherwise, it'll return an empty string. Now, I made the same thing for leaders, checking for L, and so if the role is L, then it'll return the string leaders. Otherwise, it'll return empty string. Now, what I can do with these, in order to use them, I need to drag them over to tooltip. Okay. Now that I've dragged them over, they appear on this insert menu. So let's get rid of this roles. And I'm going to insert the label followers and the label leaders right next to each other. And I know that a mark is either going to be a follower or a leader. So it'll never say leaders followers. It'll only either say this many leaders or this many followers. And this is a trick so that I can highlight just the leaders and change, say, the color to match the mark. And I can change just the followers' color to match the mark. And what this does is now once I hit OK, when I hover over the mark, you can see that the tooltip is now matching the color. So this is a pretty cool effect for custom tooltips. Now, let's move on to our last viz. So this is a dashboard, and it needs a lot of love. So let's start on the sheet. So let's start at top 10 leaders by points. And I think that this would look better if instead of using a number, we used a size that grew. So I'm going to drag the sum of points to size. Let's make this a little bigger. And instead of using the default mark that's a square, I'm going to use a custom shape. So if I go down to shape, and I go to more shapes, I can select this dance palette. Now I created this dance palette. Let me show you how. Inside of my Tableau repository, let me get there. So inside of my Tableau repository, we have this folder called Shapes. And inside of Shapes, I created my own folder called Dance. And inside of there, I just dragged this image of a trophy. And once it's in there, now I can select this dance shape palette. And once I assign it, now instead of using a square that grows, we have a little trophy that grows. So let's do the same thing on the leader or the followers side. So we're going to drag sum of points to size. We're going to make it a little bigger. We're going to change the mark to be a shape. And then we're going to change the shape to be our custom dance shape. Great. So let's go back to the leaders, and let's make some more dramatic changes. First, I want to increase the cell size. This will make it a little bigger. So if I go to Format, Cell Size, I can make this taller, and that will add a lot more space. The next thing I want to do is I want to get rid of these lines that are at the top and bottom. And these are borders. So I'm going to go to Format, Borders. And from here, I can get rid of these row dividers. Select None. The next thing I want to do is I want to make a more dramatic change. I want to change the background color. So I'm going to go to Shading. And inside of Shading, at the top, we can change this worksheet color. So I'm going to use this beautiful, what would you call this, Jason?
It looks like a burgundy or a puce, maybe?
Yeah, puce. Great. So with this lovely puce, I see that my text isn't as good anymore. It's harder to read. So I'm going to change the text color. I don't want to do this across my entire workbook, so I'm going to do it just at the worksheet. So if I format font, now I can change my worksheet text to be white. It's a little easier to read. And then I can change the worksheet title to also be white. Okay, so I made a lot of changes to the leaders, and so now I want to do copy formatting. So I go to Format, Copy Formatting, and now when I go to the followers, I can paste it, and we get all of those changes. So now let's go back to the dashboard. So now the dashboard needs a little bit of love to match the sheets. So let's go to Format, Dashboard, and from here, let's change the default shading to be this burgundy puce. And let's change the dashboard title to be white. While we're here, I think the alignment would look better if it was centered. And okay, this is looking pretty good. I think we can add one more piece of flair, though. So instead of using top 10 leaders by points and top 10 followers by points, I think it would be really cool if we used an image instead. So I'm going to hide the title. And when I close the Format Dashboard, we have the dashboard menu. And from here, I can drag an image. So I have, this is an image of a typical shoe a leader would wear in West Coast Swing. So I'm going to fit the image and center the image. And from here, I can make this a bit smaller. And now I have another image that is a typical shoe a follower would wear in West Coast Swing. Maybe the heel is a little higher than most followers would use, but it's okay. We can fit the image and center the image. And now we have this pretty cool effect where we have shoes to represent a title instead of the title. We can also change the spacing of these by adding in some blanks. So if I add a blank space here, I can resize it to make the shoe fit, say, centered over it. And I can add a blank space over here as well. Great. So I think this is pretty good. Let's go check this before and after and see where we've come. So if I go to presentation mode, okay, so quite the change in sheet 1. Again, we made changes at the data level by changing the default sort and the default color. We also made changes at the workbook level with grid lines and with fonts. Then we made individual changes at the sheet level and even added some custom tooltips. On this next one, we got a lot of these changes for free because we already made the changes at the workbook level for the fonts and for the grid line removal. We got rid of the y-axis, and we made our mark labels, and we added mark labels and made them match the color. And then in this last one, we made a lot of dramatic changes to the color and also added some custom images and custom shapes. And I just want to bring your attention to the fact that the underlying data didn't change and the viz type didn't change. All we did was add some formatting to make it a little more presentable in this dance workbook. All right, let's pass it back to Jason and see what we've learned.
All right, thanks very much, Kevin. You know, doing a live demo of Tableau before an audience here is a very challenging thing, so let's give a round of applause for Kevin for a great demo. Thank you. So what have we learned at our formatting session here today? Well, think big is the big idea in formatting. Think about the first changes you can make that have the biggest impact, and finish, just like Kevin did, with the accents, the flair that makes your data pop. Focusing on the changes with the big impact will make the best use of your time with Tableau. A simple change can have a big impact. This is workbook formatting. This lets you change many types of fonts and lines from anywhere in your workbook to change your entire workbook, even the worksheets and dashboards you haven't created yet. Once you have an example workbook with worksheets, dashboards, and stories that are formatted just the way that you like, and just the way that your organization wants them, you can use this as a template workbook. Save a template workbook in a read-only place on your intranet, not a read-write place where someone might accidentally overwrite it. So someplace like a web server or something. Ask your IT department if you need some help with that. And spread the word. Tell everyone who uses Tableau at your organization, start from here. Because that way, if your job includes combining multiple workbooks together into one, starting from a template is going to make everybody's lives that much easier. So Tableau doesn't really work like every other analysis and visualization program. We start with the data. You start by connecting to your data, you prepare your data however you like, and then you choose what to visualize. And then you choose a meaningful viz. And Tableau can help you with that step. This viz, for example, shows restaurant reviews in Edinburgh. And all these restaurants are geocoded, so we put Latin long on the rows and columns. And Tableau said, oh, let's put this on a map. And a map is the right way to do this. That is the most meaningful way to represent geocoded data. So from there, we can format. We can format the marks. We can change to custom shapes. We can format the map itself. But no amount of formatting is going to make up for a less meaningful viz. Your data and your viz choices come first. That's the foundation of an effective use of Tableau.
Great. So if you enjoyed the session, please recommend it to your colleagues. We're going to be repeating it tomorrow. We're going to be in Oceanside B, which is that way. And that's tomorrow from 3 to 4. And we also have chosen some related sessions if you're interested in dashboards or stories.
Yeah, these are great sessions that you can go to. You can learn more about them in the TC17 mobile app. And speaking of that app, please give us feedback. Please complete that session survey form and tell us how we did. 2 of our colleagues gave a presentation last year about formatting. We read all your feedback, we revised it, and we gave you the presentation today. Next year, we're going to do an even better presentation on formatting at TC18, but we need your help. Thanks for coming, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your time at Tableau Conference.